Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing some very fun battles from the Great League where a trainer is absolutely nuking their opponents with a Poltergeist Shadow Dusclops. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Alpha Club Y2K, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now the team they're running is an old classic, Azumarill Double Ghost. Azumarill on the lead, Shadow Dusclops with Poltergeist, and Shadow Sableye as the closer, and they're able to put the team to devastatingly good results and absolutely destroy some opponents along the way. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in Game 1, Azumarill finds a very nice lead as it leads into Wigglytuff. Considering the double ghost types in the back, it is incredibly important to neutralize the Wigglytuff early, so that way, it will not absolutely charm down the Sableye later on. Wigglytuff is going to try and go for a catch onto Gastrodon, and Gastrodon will swiftly be answered with Shadow Dusclops. Dusclops makes the Poltergeist losing charge attack priority to this Gastrodon. Earth Power connects, it does not KO, and now it's time. Dusclops charges up the Poltergeist. Do they respect it? They do not, and down goes Gastrodon, the full one-shot. Back in comes the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is able to get the charm down, but in comes Azumarill. Azumarill will fire off the Ice Beam at the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff will put up a shield. Wigglytuff does have so much loaded energy, Swift will not knock out, but if it lands, then the charm down can happen. Azumarill is going to shield once, not going to shield twice. Azumarill going to try and make it to the Ice Beam, will get there. If the opponent shields this, things could get very, very tricky. The opponent is going to shield it, Azumarill going to get all the damage that it can, and now it's up to Shadow Sableye, but the opponent pivots out into Drifblim, and because they switch, this game is going to be a win. Because now, Shadow Sableye can just very comfortably farm up to the back-to-back foul plays. Even at -1 foul play will easily get rid of that Drifblim, and then all that's left is the low-health Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff could have got some serious damage onto Sableye if they stayed in, but by insta-switching out, it's easy work, and Sableye takes the win. Great lead in the next match, Azumarill into Diggersby. Opponent safe switches into a Shadow Pidgeot. And so far, having two ghost types looks like a liability in this game number 2 because the opponent is running ABA normal. So unfortunately, these fast moves, Hex and Shadow Claw, are going to be doing basically nothing into 2/3 of the opponent's team. Opponent is going to go for the Air Cutter. They're fishing for a boost. They do not get it, and Azumarill is going to be no-shielding a second Air Cutter. No boost once again. Not great luck going the opponent's way. Azumarill will have to pivot out here as it is going to get farmed down. There's the pivot into Dusclops. Dusclops going to be answered with a Sableye. Sableye farming up. Oh no! They overfarmed thinking they were safe, thinking they could tank every move, but that's a Poltergeist. Oh no! They get fully one-shot. All that Sableye energy down the drain. Back in comes Pidgeot. Pidgeot going to get hit with a Shadow Ice Punch. This is easily going to be picking up the KO, and now all that's left is the Diggersby in the back. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to the next match, picking up a very neutral lead, Azumarill into Clodsire. Two better responses in the back, so there's the safe switch into the Dusclops. Dusclops will be answered with an Air/Mandibuzz, a very good Pokemon to bait out considering the Sableye in the back. And since the opponent ended up banking a ton of energy before switching, honestly, Dusclops will be able to put up a really nice fight here. Dusclops is more than happy to absorb a foul play and will now look to spam out these Ice Punches and try and force a shield advantage from the opponent. Dusclops is going to get to this third Ice Punch, and that means the opponent is going to have to go down a shield in this matchup. They do just that. Dusclops will get outpaced. Dusclops, if it wants to force the final shield, can shield here, and it looks like that's exactly what Alpha Club is planning to do. Try and force a 1-0 shield scenario, where hopefully Shadow Sableye will be able to put in work in the endgame. In comes Azumarill. Azumarill is going to get an incredibly nice farm down. This energy will be very threatening into the Clodsire. Aerial Ace not a problem whatsoever. Mandibuzz, can it hang on to make one final move? The answer is yes, but honestly, Azumarill is monstrously bulky. It does not care about an Aerial Ace whatsoever. Back in comes the Clodsire, but now Clodsire going to be under threat from the back-to-back Ice Beams that are going to be loaded up here momentarily. Azumarill gets the Ice Beam number 2. This will not knock out, but in a few short seconds, they have lost basically their entire health bar. Azumarill gonna let this go. It's gonna be Shadow Sableye that's going to have to clutch this game. They are on Stone Edge. Shadow Sableye able to not quite get the farm down. The opponent makes one final Stone Edge, and in the back is going to be a Primeape. Primeape firing off the Rage Fist right away. We will see the shield from the Sableye. Sableye desperately needing to get to the back-to-back foul plays, and by getting there, that's going to mean this game is a win, as we are going to see foul play number 1 connect, not picking up the KO, but foul play number 2 absolutely will. Down goes Primeape, one Shadow Claw KOs the Clodsire, and that's a good game. We move to the next match, and it's a very neutral, very bulky matchup, Azumarill versus Dusclops. Dusclops will obviously have a pretty significant pacing advantage here. The opponent farms up to a Poltergeist. Will the opponent have the move? No, they do not. Unfortunately, we will not see a Poltergeist from the opponent. Opponent is going to be hit with the play rough, and now here comes the switch. Dusclops into Dusclops. Opponent will have a massive pacing advantage in this matchup since they do have Shadow Punch. They're now going to pivot out into Blastoise. Oh no. Here's the thing about Dusclops. It's very bulky. It never does a lot of damage, so people just hate to shield. There is the Poltergeist. Down goes 90% of a Blastoise instantly, and Hydro Cannon will pick up the KO. In comes Azumarill getting an incredibly aggressive farm down. Azumarill now up energy and can threaten the Dusclops, but the opponent is going to bring in Scizor. This could be a problem. Bullet punches inflict way too much damage. Scizor will be shielding every move thrown, and now in comes the Sableye. Opponent, I believe, made a misplay here. They did not go for a Trailblaze. Instead, they went for a Night Slash. Night Slash means that they don't get to boost up the bullet punches and just farm down the Sableye, but rather, they're the ones who are now in danger of getting farmed. Sableye is going to commit the final shield. Even without the boost on the bullet punches, it's still doing so much damage. In comes the Dusclops. Shadow Punch will not KO. Sableye would love if the switch clock came up, but it just does not. Sableye 0 bubbles, as Azumarill will need farm to win this game. In comes the Azumarill. The move is reached by the Dusclops, but this will not knock out. Will this farm help the Azumarill outpace the Scizor? Azumarill only 1 away from the Ice Beam, and that undercharge play was perfect. What a read. Alpha finding the win con and taking the game. Dream lead in the next match, Azumarill into Regidrago. Opponent will look to pivot out instantly. There is a save switch to Fortress. Fortress going to be met now with the Dusclops. Now, Alpha did bank a lot of energy on the Azumarill, but in doing so, Fortress was given a massive energy head start, and Fortress up energy can flip Dusclops, but not if they no-shield the Poltergeist. Dusclops full sending, but they respect it with a shield, and that means the opponent will now easily take alignment. This does mean the opponent's Regidrago has been freed from getting stuck onto that Azumarill. And now, unfortunately, the Fortress is still too healthy. The Azumarill can't get brought in here. Instead, it's going to have to be the Sableye. Sableye is just getting deleted by these bug bites. Fortress is just such an absolute monster of a Pokemon. Sableye is able to get to the back-to-back foul plays, but Sableye's attack is at -1, so it will be looking to pivot out here. In the back, it's Unova Stunfisk, and up this much energy, there may actually be a chance. Azumarill will be able to threaten with Ice Beam. Looks like Ice Beam can two-shot here. Opponent will return fire with the Discharge. Discharge, not a particularly powerful attack. This will come down to the opponent. I was gonna say, can they make a third Discharge, but they throw on alignment, a massive error from the opponent, and that could end up costing them this entire game. Ice Beam is going to be shielded. Azumarill banks the Ice Beam for later, and there is the ruthless combo play with the foul play from the Sableye. Down goes the Stunfisk. In comes Regidrago. Regidrago unable to get the farm down, and that will seal their fate. The opponent, they were in a difficult spot no matter what, but the fact that they threw on alignment, giving an entire free bubble to the Azumarill meant, unfortunately, there was just no hope of ever outpacing that Azumarill. Dragon Energy will not knock out. Ice Beam definitely will, and Azumarill is able to take the win. We move to the next match, and it's a very nice lead again for the Azumarill, leading into Shadow Typhlosion. Typhlosion farming up a ton of energy. Azumarill gets a chance at a free Ice Beam. They don't throw it, and that is a misplay. Azumarill needs to throw the Ice Beam there to pressure the shield from the Typhlosion, because now the Typhlosion is able to dance off the battlefield, saving 2 shields to work with for later in the match. So Typhlosion was able to generate a really nice advantage without having to pay for it. Shadow Sableye is going to be firing off the foul play on charge attack priority. Foul play just misses the knockout. Gastrodon too bulky, and that's going to force Sableye to go down a shield as his Gastrodon is on Water Pulse. But now, as Greninja hits the field, unfortunately the game is instantly over. If the Greninja didn't have 2 shields to hide behind, this could actually be an okay scenario. It would still be a very, very tricky game to win, but without 2 shields to hide behind, it could actually be playable. Whereas now, unfortunately, the decisions from earlier in the match will come back to bite, as Greninja should just be able to sweep the remainder of this game. Greninja, Night Slash is going to pick up the knockout, and there just aren't really good answers available. In comes the Dusclops. Dusclops will be able to tank a Night Slash, but not very comfortably. The Night Slash is going to land. Greninja is going to get to yet another Night Slash. And yeah, at this point, this game is unfortunately unwinnable because there is a move loaded on the Typhlosion. The Ice Beam is reached. Ice Beam going to be resisted damage into the Greninja. Greninja survives on 1 HP, and unfortunately that's going to do it, as Hydro Cannon will get them too low, and Typhlosion will get the farm down. We see a very familiar lead in the next match, Azumarill against Wigglytuff. Again, this backline would get destroyed by Wigglytuff, so it's very good to catch it on the lead. But a Whiscash save switch poses issues. First of all, there's a Whiscash on my screen in Season 23 of Go Battle League. That's the biggest surprise of them all, is Whiscash is a Pokemon that has not been relevant in quite a few seasons. Unfortunately, the nerf to Scald and Mudshot over several seasons does make it a lot more difficult to use, and it just doesn't quite have the same neutral matchups that it had in its prime. It also is not on the field anymore because Poltergeist lands and they just get deleted. Shadow Poltergeist, oh my goodness. It is definitely not the meta moveset to run, but it is catching people off guard consistently. Wigglytuff on the field, the timers are very heavily misaligned. Azumarill getting to fire off this Ice Beam is critical because this will help bring the timers back into alignment. Azumarill going to be hit with a Swift. Swift, not a particularly threatening attack, but when your other option for dealing with the Wigglytuff is Sableye, it kind of forces the shield to come out. Another Ice Beam bait from the Azumarill, hoping Wigglytuff will put up the shield, and they will. The opponent double shielding. They are really trying to get rid of the Azumarill, but Azumarill is going to double shield right back. Azumarill now going to be met with a Swampert in the back as the final Pokemon, and this game should be a win because Swampert, it just doesn't have the damage output to get rid of Sableye before Sableye can land the foul play. Sableye will fire off this foul play. This is going to do catastrophic damage to the Swampert, and this just sets up perfect bubble farm down range for the Azumarill. His Hydro Cannon will pick up the KO, but now 3 bubbles will knock out. The Play Rough is loaded, and that means this game will be a win. Wigglytuff double Mud Boy. Interesting team there. I don't really think Whiscash is a good Pokemon in this meta, and it ends in a win. Very bad lead in the next match, Azumarill into Credilli. We see a safe switch into the Shadow Dusclops, and since Credilli stays in, even with the 1-turn switch, Dusclops is able to outpace and land the Ice Punch, and just like that, half their HP instantly disappears. Credilli returns fire with the Rock Tomb. That does a lot of damage. Opponent gonna bring in their own Dusclops. Oh no, they lose charge attack priority here. Do they respect it? They do not, even at -1 from a Rock Tomb. That is a full one-shot. Oh my goodness, opponent in absolute shambles after that one. That is just devastating. Their entire Dusclops, they get 0 value from it. This Quagsire will get an incredibly aggressive farm down, but luckily, Azumarill is where non-Shadow Quagsire energy will go to die. Look at that Stone Edge. It just does nothing. In comes Credilli, answered with the Shadow Sableye. Sableye can survive any one move here. Sableye will put up a shield because it would still inflict quite a lot of damage. Sableye overfarming to the max and going to play to the CMP tie here with the Foul Play. Foul Play is going to be shielded up by the opponent. Sableye going for a double shield now, just trying to preserve as much health on the Sableye as possible. Sableye is going to get the full farm down, exiting with a ton of energy. Now, these moves are 2 stages debuffed. There have been 2 Rock Tombs thrown, so the opponent never going to be shielding that. But now back in comes the Azumarill, and Stone Edge just simply does not cut it in this matchup from the non-Shadow Quagsire. Azumarill tanks it very comfortably. The Ice Beam is reached, and Sableye will win charge attack priority over the Quagsire, which means this game is over. It's just only a matter of time. Quagsire will need the Stone Edge to pick up the knockout onto the Azumarill. They go for an Aqua Tail. That's not going to cut it. Azumarill It looks like stopped tapping there. Going for a bit of bad manners here, not taking the win with the Azumarill farm down. Instead, gonna go for the win with the Sableye. Sableye doesn't tap the move as well, and now will finally tap the move. So a little bit of bad manners to end off this shoutcast from the opponent. They land that Poltergeist, and then from there, they just tried to drag out the battle as long as humanly possible. All in all, these are some very fun battles, so many thanks for sending them in. Shadow Poltergeist one-shotting in the mirror, even after the Rock Tomb debuff, was probably my favorite moment of these battles, as I was expecting a lot of damage, sure, but Dusclops is one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the Great League, so at -1, that Poltergeist to one-shotting was very hilarious. Now, it goes without saying, Dusclops is going to be at its strongest when it is running Shadow Punch and Ice Punch, as obviously Shadow Punch, you just have absurdly fast 9-turn pacing, even getting a 6 cycle at one point, and Ice Punch offering great coverage, but with the Go Battle League being a blind 3s format where movesets are unknown, there can be value in having these surprise nuke movesets. On top of that, Dusclops is a Pokemon that even when hitting for super effective, never hits for a lot of damage, so people tend to try and save their shields, anticipating that if there's a Dusclops on the team, there's probably something that hits harder somewhere else. And in doing so, that can leave them a little vulnerable to the Shadow Poltergeist. For those who are looking to rank up and make a climb in these final few days of the Great League before we do see the league rotation, I think this is a very solid team to do so. Whether you end up running that Poltergeist surprise nuke or if you opt for the more default moveset, this is just a very strong principled team. Azumarill double Ghost, it's been a viable team, obviously with very different ghost types, for several years now, so it is cool to see an old archetype be able to be brought into a current meta and still have some pretty nice results. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.